Very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ebenezer, you are not listening to me when I'm saying something to you. That's the problem from the starting of your thesis. I said you for several times to do record. Okay.
Cyprus Internet, welcome, Prof. I'm really glad to have you today, and thank you very much for your time to us. The topic of my thesis is the prevalence of malaria among infants in the Isao municipality during the rainy season. It is presented by Beneza Kwabnajan. This work was supervised by Associate Professor Dr. H.J. Malaria parasitic infection positioning ranks among most of the deadly diseases, notwithstanding the prosperity and improvement challenges facing indisputable the least blessed economy. In sub-Saharan Africa, malaria parasitic infection related disease affects most children out of every 20 underneath under the age of 5 in most cases of the infection. More than a million each year per the research finding by WHO on malaria. In Sawan, which is the agricultural community in the eastern region of Ghana and among the Ghana's 10 administrative regions, has the highest cases of malaria in the eastern region of Ghana. This is because in Sahom has a lot of mineral resources in which are being exploited illegally because the only most of the indigenous or most of the inhabitants in this particular area are engaged in farming activities. The dangers are left untamed and they are left untamed and uncared for, and of which at the end of the day during the rainy season, these pits are being filled with with rainwater, thereby serving as breeding grounds for mosquitoes and affecting lives as well during this season. The prevailing piece of this of the inpatient is 41.5%. 41.5% is what case developing from 0 to 5 years, while the amount of steady cases overall decreases with aging. The result shows that malaria are high in Insaum, Adesu, Mante, and Amasamai. Uh, this this study, the research objective study is to determine the causes of malaria parasitic infection in Sao municipality to ascertain the effect of malaria parasite on the people, on the on the people living in this area, to identify the possible preventive measures on malaria parasitic infection. This is just a global review on malaria issues. Malaria considered to the most consequential parasitic infection in humans. There are as many as 350 to 500 million clinical episodes per year worldwide. And whilst most of the estimates of mortality caused by malaria lies around 1 million deaths per year. Some calculations may go as high as well. Causes of malaria. Malaria belongs to the genus Plasmodium. In humans, malaria is caused by Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium malaria, Plasmodium ova, Plasmodium valvis, and Plasmodium coleus. Among those infected, Plasmodium falciparum is the most common species and most effective in terms of what malaria infection, which means therefore that of all the types of the parasite of malaria, the Plasmodium falciparum is the most effective and the most dangerous one in terms of what infection. We look at the political background of the study area in Saum, as earlier said, being in the is in the southern Ghana and then in the eastern region of Ghana, and it is the capital of Equiapim South Municipal District, the district in the eastern region of what southern Ghana. The main ethnic group is Akan, followed by Ga, Ewes. Saum is controlled by Equiapim Municipal District. We look at the study size and then the sample size too as well. The study was a descriptive cross-sectional study with a population of what 172,522 and estimated 20% of the study population. 162 samples were determined using the SPSS data analysis. Total sample test was 162, positive came out to be 126, negative 31, and invalid 5. Prevalence rate stood at what 35%, and then a margin of 5 error, and then 95% confidence interval. I look at the data collection and how the data was being collected, and then how the analysis were being done. Data was collected, a prepared questionnaire containing open-ended in the form of what probing questions and closed-ended questions were being used in to interview the inhabitant. The research assistant has to read the questions to them and then take out the response from the respondents, that is in their own language. That is for those who are unable to read, and then for those who could read also could fill out what themselves. The data were entered using the Microsoft Excel, and double checked statistical analysis were performed using the statistical packet package data, that is the SPSS as well. So before the cases were being processed, we look at because earlier on we have to look at the two factors over here: the dependent factor, which is the malaria test results, and then the independent, which are the other factors which will definitely have an effect on them. So we have to first of all cross check all the data and all the figures to see if all of them are valid to be analyzed, and then that is just what the SPSS data give us. So at the end of the day, we look at the social demographic characteristics of a participant during the this issue, and then we have adults. Adults recorded a frequency of 48, which stood at what 30%. Infants recorded 114, which stood at 70% out of the positive rate. Occupation, we have former those who have other former occupation, which could be nurse, which could be any educational related work, stood at 41%, standing at 25%. Informal or unemployed inclusive stood at 121%, standing at a percentage of 75, which means therefore that most of the people were, excuse me to say, unemployed and then being engaged in farming activities, or in short, not working at all. Educational level, we look at the educational level. Has it got an impact on the research for which accounted to the rate of the positivity among the infant? We look at the formal education, which is which has a frequency of 61, standing at 38%, and an informal standing frequency of 111, standing at 62%. So that is it. So in short, this is a summary of all what took place. So we we wanted to know, has the occupation, has the occupation and education got to do with any of the results, and then the age group too as well. So of course it has, and then there will come. So we have the infant age group. Within the infant age group, the people who accounted to be positive were 78%, accounting at 68.4%, and then the negative accounted at 36, which accounted as what 34.6%. This resulted in a total of 140, which stood at 70% of what the infant age group as well, as compared to the adult, which stood at what 48, as compared to the adult, which stood at uh, which stood at 30% of what of the steady population as well. We look at the SPSS data analysis by correlation, and then by correlation Pearson chi-square, we could see from the test that there was a correlation, but a weak correlation between the age group and then the test results, because the value of correlation, which is what 0.08%, is inferior to 0.1 and significant at 10%, which therefore explains there was a correlation. Although it was a weak correlation, it has an effect on the study as well. So uh, we look at the graph over here, and then we have to take the analysis within the age group. What really happens within the age group? What really happens within the age group? The infant, those which recorded higher. This graph actually need to be updated and then be corrected. Yeah, within the age group, the infant, which recorded as what positive being high and then negative being low. Within the age group, the adult, negative being I mean, the adults were more or less like not within the range, so it was the infants which were more into discussion. Now we look at the occupation. We compare the occupation. Has the occupation got to do with anything? Of course, the occupation got to do with the results too as well. Because we look at the former people with formal education having a frequency of what 41%, and then this 41% as compared to people with no formal education at all, standing at what 162%, which means therefore that the um, 162%. That's an effect, but in this case, it wasn't all that a factor to be considered. So, but from the correlation analysis, there was no correlation actually. So we didn't. We couldn't speak much of their occupation, but although it also has to, it didn't have any correlation, but the figures over here is irrelevant to have a correlation on it. Now, we look at the education, the cross-tab of educational level compared to the test results. Now we look at the within the educational level. We look at the educational level in the people with formal education in terms of how they have an idea on the on the issue of malaria. Oh, and then it came out, and then we could see the more we could see from the results that most of the people with informal education were only 61%, and then the people without any informal education was 101, and then this also has an if it has an impact or has an influence. So what are we talking about? The educational population recorded 61.7% of what non-formal against 38.3% formal education. So that means therefore that the educational background of the inhabitant in this particular setting or in this particular area was also a factor for which this positivity among the children also came about. So there was a correlation. Although there was a weak correlation, there was a correlation, has an impact, has an impact on the research study from the correlation analysis over here. The results showed that the educational level was significant. The chi-square, the results show that the educational level were significantly associated with malaria as well as what age group. Was the correlation analysis over here, the Pearson chi-square was 0.5, which also which means pi is what less than 0.5, inferior at what 0.5, and then significant at 5%. So the bar graph over here, we need to look at what are we talking about. We're talking about a little more description of what the educational level, people without any formal education having no idea being more than people with what formal education having what less idea as compared to people with formal education, less as compared to what the people without or with no idea as well. Now, a summary of the finding: the study assessed causes of malaria in the Insaum area as a result of improper disposal of mine, site, and ignorance. Because all these findings were as a result of the questionnaire which was being put across, and some of the suggestions that we took from them, and then what we have to come out with what this thing. The study further reveals that poverty reveals that poverty and death are the effect of malaria on them, because at the end of the day, when a person is being infected and then basically he has no means of what curing it, he's going to die. And then basically, if he has, if he's sick and he cannot also go to work, cannot go, even they have no work at all, it's definitely going to render them being at home, being stagnated, and then this leads to a lot of what job insecurity too as well, because he's not fit. So how can he or she work? It was justified that inhabitants of the study area used both orthodox and herbal medication in terms of treating malaria. Also, the inhabitants prevented themselves from getting malaria by the use of mosquito net, repellents, as well as keeping their surroundings clean. This is just a suggestion that these are some of them for which had the education on malaria. These were some of the things that they suggested, and that was what was they used to do. In conclusion, In conclusion, the research reveals that the major causes of malaria were as a result of unsanitary practices, which include improper disposal of mine waste, because it is basic, most basic, this particular thing which is having an which is also having an impact on them. We around which are not being cleared. I mean, the area not being kept clean also serve as breeding grounds, major breeding grounds for the mosquitoes too as well. Notwithstanding or not forgetting the fact that most of these their activities are also not far from what, home. So even though it didn't have any impact on the research, the setting alone and then the all with the sanitary practices and on cleanliness of the area affected them most. That is, most of the inhabitants are not even aware of the causes and prevention of what, malaria. Therefore, they are not able to avoid getting infected by malaria. Recommendation. So we check what are some of the things that at the end of the study, the things that from the questionnaire and from our own perspective, from our point of view, what it should be done from what we saw. Homes and surroundings should be kept clean, sewage must be properly disposed, which must be cleared often, and stagnant waters in cans and gutters should be drained and kept clean. I think the government also has a part to play over here, because the government has a part to play over here. We should uh, increase the level of malaria education so that it gets to the people, so that they will know how to prevent themselves, they will know how to keep the environment clean, as well as the opinion leaders within the community too as well. The government effort in terms of their operations, that is the occupation, to it should be looked at, because you need to also set rules for which can regulate these activities in order to take care of this whole dilemma, to protect the people as well. So because it has an impact on the children as well. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.